Welcome back to In Session in Arizona versus James Ray. I'm Vinnie Politan. We're going to get back to the testimony in just a second, but first, I want to take time to take a look at what sometimes gets lost in a trial, which are the victims. Kirby Brown, James Shore, and Liz Newman all died after participating in one of Ray's sweat lodges. They each left behind grieving families and heartbroken friends. In Session's Ryan Smith takes us past their victim label.
Kirby Brown was 38 years old and from New York State, a surfer and a painter who friends and family describe as a free spirit. She worked in a variety of jobs, from managing a horse farm to running a printing business in Mexico and driving a limo in Manhattan. Her best friend describes what she thinks Kirby was seeking when she signed up for James Ray's spiritual warrior retreat.
She had set some new goals for herself, and from the way she spoke about this retreat, I got the impression that she was going on this retreat to try and figure out what path to take to get to those goals.
James Shore was a 48-year-old father of 3 from Milwaukee. He was co-owner of an internet business and was passionate about pursuing homeopathic remedies and alternative therapies. He went to Sedona because he was trying to quit smoking. He reportedly left the lodge at one point when he helped to drag out a woman who had passed out and then went back in to finish the ceremony. A family friend says that was just the way James was.
It wouldn't surprise me in the least that he went back in because he wanted to make sure, to the best of his ability, that, people came out on the other end safely.
Lisbeth Newman was a 49-year-old mother of 3 from Minnesota. She loved cooking and hiking and playing the trombone. Newman had been a student of James Ray for 7 years and was one of his dream team members inside the sweat lodge. When she was taken to the hospital, she was initially admitted as a Jane Doe because she didn't have ID. After hearing the news of what happened at the lodge, her family made several calls and eventually found her at the hospital. She was in a coma for 9 days before she died. Her daughter, Andrea Puckett, mourns the loss of her mother and the relationship they will never have.
I keep thinking that after all this goes away, after it's out of the news, after lawsuits and all that's done, that she's going to be back, that she's going to be here, cooking Thanksgiving dinner and, being there for future weddings and grandkids, and it's hard to think that she won't be here.
James Ray is facing 3 counts of manslaughter in connection with the deaths. His lawyer says it was a terrible accident, but not a criminal act, and Ray has pleaded not guilty.
It really leaves you with a lot of questions. 3 people lose their lives, and these are all, these are bright people, and you're wondering what drew them to James Ray, what makes them want to take part in all this, and ultimately what led them to stay inside that sweat lodge. We're going to try to answer those questions now. We have an expert joining us. His name is Dr. That's right, Dr. Patrick Wanis, human behavior relationship expert. Specializes in human behavior, joining us from Los Angeles today. Great to see you, Doctor.
Thank you, Vinny.
Let's start, first of all, in a more general sense. These and the people who are in this sweat lodge obviously all had money, first of all, because it costs a lot of money to participate in James Ray's sweat lodges and the other events that he was throwing. These are people...
$10,000.
Yeah, these people have money. Obviously, they're bright people, they're smart people, but they all seem to be looking for something. Is there any sort of common denominator that you see among people who would participate and want to, and they're all there to make themselves better people, which is admirable, but what would draw them to someone like James Ray, in a more general sense,
well,
I guess?
Vinny, you said something very specific. You talked about they were looking for something, they were seeking. You see, we have some basic human emotional needs. Love, connection to a wider community, acceptance, significance, challenge, security, the idea of growing, developing, making a difference. When those needs aren't being met, we can start to feel emotionally vulnerable. Then we start to look for someone who can solve our problems, someone who offers us hope, someone who says, I can single-handedly make you happy. I have the secret. And that's what James Ray was doing. He was selling himself as, I have this amazing knowledge. I've traveled, I've spent time in Peru and with these masters and with these shamans, and I know things, I have secrets that no one else does. So if I'm emotionally vulnerable, I can easily hand over my trust to you because you're saying you can meet my needs. And incidentally, Vinnie, this is exactly what Charles Manson did. That's how he began the family, when he found all these young people who were looking for something, who were emotionally vulnerable.
And that's an interesting analogy you make, and obviously, you know, this man is nothing like Charles Manson at the end of the day, and what he did and what James Ray is accused of here. But what I found interesting...
But the similarity...
But the
Vinnie,
similarity,
the similarity
right? I understand what you're saying in the similarity. I just want to make sure that the folks at home don't think that this is a guy who purposely tried to kill someone like Charles Manson did. Right. And that's where we have to distinguish it in the criminal court. I want you to take a listen to Stephen Ray. This is someone who participated, testified in this case, talking about his reluctance to attend the sweat lodge, but he ultimately did. Take a listen, Doctor.
Did you play full on?
Yes.
Were there any events that you did not want to participate in?
Well, I didn't want to participate in the hair cutting. You know, I said that was, for me, was something that I really didn't, you know, I just had an issue with the sweat lodge. I really didn't want to go in the sweat lodge.
Why not?
I had done one previously. In San Diego, and a friend of mine had done one out and invited me to go participate, and I didn't like it. I went in for just a few minutes, and I felt claustrophobic, and I felt like I was suffocating because of the heat, and so I left right away. So at the point in which, you know, we were heading down to the sweat lodge, I was pretty afraid.
Doctor, this is a guy who's afraid to do it, yet he does it. How can another human being be able to convince us to do something? And he went in there saying, I didn't want to do it. I had done it before. I was claustrophobic. I felt like I was suffocating. Yet he goes back in.
It's not as complicated as you think, Vinnie. It's very simple. Remember when you were a kid, when you were a teenager, how you did things that all your friends did? We call that peer group pressure. When you're at the sweat lodge, you have peer group pressure. The second thing you have is, if you make James Ray out to be a guru, you become a devotee, you become a follower. A lot of the testimony in this trial says that people were afraid of James Ray, they were trying to get his approval, they were trying to please him, they felt intimidated, and that even tried to shame them when he said to one of them, oh, you don't want to cut your hair, you don't want to shave your head? Is that your identity? Are you hiding behind your hair? So James Ray becomes more than an authority figure, he becomes more than a guru. He starts to play the role of God, and he tries to persuade and influence these people to do things that they don't feel comfortable about. There's nothing wrong with saying to people, play full on. A sports coach says that to every single player in the team, play full on. But when your brain signals you that you are in physical danger, that you can actually die, that's when you stop playing. That's when you get out. So if this guy, Stephen Ray, says, look, I did it once before, I didn't like it, I didn't feel comfortable, and then he ended up doing it again, obviously he felt pressure. And he felt pressure maybe from the group as well as the leader, James Ray. And that's the danger of gurus, when we hand over all of our power, all of our authority, all of our trust to someone else who now isn't just a leader, he's actually controlling us, and he's using psychological strategies to control us and to gain authority over us. You know, you keep using that word guru, and that's something we've debated a lot here on In Session. You know, is this guy a guru? Is he a mentor? Is he an advisor? What should we call him? Well, on the stand, one of the Dream Team members described how she viewed James Ray. I want you to take a listen to some of Jennifer Haley's testimony here.
What did you believe?
That's what I believed, that we were safe and that he would keep us safe. And if somebody needed to get out, he would tell us to get them out, which is what he had with Lou.
Right. And why did you believe that, Miss Haley?
Because he was my teacher and my mentor.
All right, Doctor, where's the line between teacher, mentor, and guru?
There's a huge difference. We don't worship a teacher and mentor. We don't follow a teacher and mentor. We don't place a teacher and mentor on such a high pedestal that he sells to us a samurai game and says to us, you have to die before being reborn. You have to symbolically die before being reborn. These people trusted him much more than they should have. In yourself, you have to establish your own limits. You have to know what are your values, how far you'll go and how far you won't go. When we talk about guru, the original word guru has a connotation of a spiritual priest, a spiritual master. And this was part of the problem, Vinnie. James Ray, in his original marketing of this spiritual warrior retreat, talked about how you would be transformed and how he had all these secrets. He was setting himself up to be God-like. I have the secrets that no one else has. I can change you. I have the answer to all of your problems. That also fits in too, though, with how he changed. We have to look at the process. Remember, he's a New York Times best-selling author. His pitch, I can help you to have harmonic wealth in all areas of your life. Okay. He also teaches the law of attraction. Well, how did he attract all this to himself? People gave him their power, Vinnie. It's really quite simple. The question is, what were they going through that allowed them to hand over all of their power, their trust, their authority in this man? And it's a combination that, yes, they're partly responsible, and so is he.
Now, James Ray and his attorneys don't agree that he's any form of a guru, and we have a letter here from December 2009 written by James Ray's attorneys to the state. Here's what it reads. Mr. Ray is not a guru, and the people who come to JRI events are not cult members. They do not meet as an ongoing group or collective. They do not live communally or on isolated property. They do not dress in a particular way or engage in ongoing rituals or worship. Mr. Ray asked people not to follow him, but to find what works for them. What's your reaction to that, Doctor?
Well, it's one thing to write that in a letter. It's another thing when you look at the testimony when he was dissuading people from getting out of the tent, out of the sweat lodge, when they said, I'm sick, or that person over there is sick, or you're coming out and you're saying, look, I think I'm going to die. And he says, you'll be okay. You are where you should be. That's not someone who says, don't follow me. That's someone who says, get back in there. So that's not just someone who says, you know what, do what you think is best for you. I have done a sweat lodge twice, so I can speak from experience. And I know that there were people who got out when they couldn't handle it, when they didn't feel safe, or, as Stephen Ray in the testimony said earlier, the first time round he felt uncomfortable, he got out. When you know your limits, you get out. But James Ray said to people, stay in there. He didn't lock them up there, but he dissuaded them. And when you're saying, I want your approval, James, I want you to like me, I feel intimidated by you, I feel afraid of you, then I'm going to push myself potentially to a place of danger, to risking my life. And that's what's wrong. And that's why in my mind, I see him as a guru. He's promoted himself as a self-help guru. Even if he says, look, I'm not a guru in the strictest definition. But also, Vinnie, the definition of a guru includes like a small religious sect or someone that uses psychological techniques and strategies to gain control and authority over people. Then we also have to say, was he exploiting these people? Was he exploiting them financially? Did he need to charge them $10,000?
And that didn't include, of course, lodging and food. They had to pay separate, separate about $1,500 for that as well, including the people who were working as volunteers in his dream team. Anyhow, Dr. Patrick Wanis, yeah, it's a lot of money, Dr. Wanis. Unfortunately, we're out of time for today. We'd love to have you back. Great job, interesting stuff. All right, coming up, we've got testimony from the woman who sat just a few feet from James Ray on the other side of the sweat lodge wall. She talks about what she heard him say coming up. Plus, get in your answer.